Welcome back to another episode of the Navs Effect podcast. I'm your host, Naveen Ganglani. We're recording this on a Saturday. You're going to be listening to this episode a few days after that. So it's a little more evergreen, something that you can actually even go back to, even if you don't finish the whole episode right away. Simoun Redoblado joins us once again, a familiar guest of this podcast, someone who is passionate about these UP Fighting Maroons, someone who contributes to the All Star Magazine website. So you go check out his work. I'm sure we'll have more coming from him as we get closer to the ever popular college basketball season. So we have a few things we've got planned for this episode. First, though, we're going to ask Simon something that I think will be a keynote as we get to the UAAP season with regards to a championship contender in the UP Fighting Maroons. Simon, let's get right to it. You wanted to discuss this topic in particular because I feel like after watching some of UP's games in the Phil Oil tournament, we shall we say have a note that we need to bookmark in our heads for when UP eventually gets into close late game matchups, particularly against Final Four caliber opponents, right? So, would you agree, Simon, that as of right now, third week of July, the UP Fighting Maroons have a closer by committee? And by that, we mean some games, like it was against LaSalle in the Phil Oil semis, it might be Remogat. Some days, it might be Harold Alarcon. Some days, it might be the captain, Jerry Abadiano, who was the closer against NU in the elimination round of Phil Oil. By the way, UP will face NU in the finals of Phil Oil on July 27. Some days, who knows, it might even be Noruka if he has an advantage down low against weaker front line. So, Simon, what are your thoughts about this?
I think this closer by committee formula Navs. First of all, I'm not sure if they did it by design. I'm not sure if they stumbled onto it. But if I'm Coach Gold and I'm Coach Tom, I'm taking a close look at the final few minutes of that epic DLSU UP semifinal matchup in Phil Oil last week. And I'm taking a look at how exactly those offensive possessions played out, particularly at crunch time in the fourth quarter. Navs, I think this closer by committee formula, I think we should trademark that, involves three crucial players: Ray Remogat, Harold Alarcon, and Jerry Abadiano. What do I mean by this? For quite some time now, I think myself, the UP community, perhaps even you, we've been looking at, say, Harold to take over what JD Kagulangan has been doing over the past few years. And that is to be the go-to guy of the Fighting Maroons when push comes to shove and we're counting down the final minutes of the fourth quarter. After watching last week's game, Nabs, I think it's better if we take a look at the roles of not only Alarcon but also Cap Jerry and Ray and see who fits what in terms of crunch time roles. You ready? Here's how we do this clutch by committee formula. Start of the fourth quarter, first 6 to 7 minutes, give Harold the ball. Let him make plays, whatever the case may be. Let him draw two, pass to the open guy. He's proven to be very capable of doing that. Particularly last year, he was the one who dished that crucial assist to Francis Lopez, who swished that three to put UP up 64-60. Let Harold score, let Harold make the plays first 6 to 7 minutes of the fourth quarter. And then when it's time to land the haymakers, so basically Harold's the equivalent of shout out Pacquiao tomorrow. Harold's basically the equivalent of a 6 to 7 minute long jab fest. When it's time to land the haymakers, give it to our goat. Give it to Remo Goat. I think among those three Navs, Remogat has the most creative offensive skill set in order to get off his baskets, particularly from beyond the arc. He's lethal coming off screens. He can pull up just like that transition three that he hit right in between Mike Phillips' eyes. So if UP is still down at that time, say 3 minutes to go, 2 minutes to go in the fourth quarter. Let Remogat have the damn ball, and before you know it, just like we saw last week, UP could very well be up by 2 possessions. And then a lot of people don't make those crucial baskets so that with 1 minute left or 30 seconds left, you effectively put the game away. A lot of people miss those shots, those trips to the free throw line, they waste those. Give it to the two-time captain. Jerry Abadiano has proven time and time again that he is hella clutch. I was laughing my butt off when he made that free throw that was eventually waved off by the referee. It seemed like he wanted to smack someone up the side of their head, much like all of us were, as frustrating as that officiating was in that game. But he goes back to the line, and as if nothing happened, he swishes the makeup free throw. So I think that's a formula, Navs, that the Fighting Maroons and all of us can go back to when the season begins. Let Harold handle the playmaking for much of the fourth quarter, and then as the clock dwindles down, give Remogat the ball for the most booming baskets in crunch time, and then let Cap Jerry ice the game. Final note on this, Navs. This is not to say that neither Harold nor Jerry is capable of hitting those booming triples. I'm not saying that neither Harold nor Ray is capable of icing the game, but I think in terms of who is most suited for what, that formula that I just laid out might as well be a winning formula that will put UP back on top again.
So what do you do if all three guys are off? Do you have a plan D? Do you have another option? Because the three guys you mentioned are guards, and they're
Yeah.
very talented guards. But I feel like you could use a wing option there as well. Now, look, for example, Francis Lopez wasn't a closer, although he did hit what I thought was the biggest shot of UAAP season 87, that 3-point shot that put UP up 4 in game 3 of the finals. He wasn't okay, give the ball to him and he's gonna make the best decisions in the clutch. A lot of times he was the I'm gonna take the ball anyway, whether or not you want me to take the ball, and I'm gonna make decisions with the ball kind of guy. But at the same time too, you saw there were sequences that helped, like in game 3 of the finals, like during the elimination round when he can get you an easy bucket in transition, where he could use his athleticism to get you extra possessions. And we've talked a lot in this podcast about the importance of multiple possessions when it comes to winning close games against elite competition. And I feel like there will be certain matchups against certain teams where you might have to look at their wing defenders as the weak point, and you're gonna say, okay, do we get our guards switched on these wing defenders and try to score on them? Or do we have the options like a Jacob Baila, like a Seven Cagate, like a Chico Briones, Miguel Iniguez, to go to give us a bucket. Now, Alarcon is kind of a tweener between a guard and a wing, in my opinion, but I feel naturally he's more of a two guard than a three man. Now, you can make the case that we live in a time where positions don't matter so much in basketball, but I feel like the size matchups matter, particularly in college basketball. So, all of that to say, if not those three guys, who's your next best option?
Well, we had the Francis making a big play in the finals last year. Then let's have another Francis perhaps coming to UP's rescue again this year. As you said, Francis Naruka is one hell of an offensive weapon. He has an inside-outside game. He can control the boards, and most importantly, Navs, he can run. So he can score in both the half court and on the open court. So I think Nuruka is going to surprise a lot of people in the sense that Momoway and Konate have been dominating the statistical points race for quite some time now. I think Nuruka's gonna sneak in there because there will be games in which he's going to be explosive not only in the rebounding category but also in terms of scoring. So I think Nuruka, with his combination of size, his length, and his offensive prowess, I think he's definitely an option there. But hey, this is the last dance of what UP fans call Maroon 5. So let me bring in another guard. You mentioned Raylan Torres working on his step back jumper, and hell, I'll give the ball to him. I'll swing it over to him if those three are off.
Hey,
Uh,
someone listened to the last few
of
episodes. Look at you,
course.
Simon.
Hey, You put UP, you put Fighting Maroons in the title of your podcast. I'm listening to that thing. Okay, so yeah. Speaking from experience, you and I both know that where it's different when you're swishing jumpers in an empty gym with no one in front of you. There's a difference between that and a long defender hounding you, blocking your way, right? So Torres' uh, flourishing ability to create distance off that step back will not only get UP buckets um, to overcome leads, but I think there will be games this season in which those buckets will be extremely crucial because they come in crunch time.
Taurus, at least from my perspective watching the games, it feels like you're seeing him try to develop that 3 and D reputation that would carry him over to the pros. Sometimes in the pros, and this is to go on a tangent, sometimes in the pros, the guys who carve out a niche in college basketball end up having the prolonged pro career compared to the star players in college basketball. I'll give you an example. You go back to the 2015 FEU team. Mac Bello was the best player on the team. Mike Tolomeo was the lead guard of the team. And R.R. Pogoy was kind of the third piece that flourished later on with these guys and became that knockdown shooter they needed to complement the cast. But now when you look at the pros, from those three guys, R.R. Pogoy, far and beyond, has had the best career. And I'm not saying RR is just a 3 and D kind of guy, although the finals are kind of showing that you can attack his ball handling a little bit. Not nevertheless, my point is Pogoy has developed into a more complete player, but because he entered the Pro League, the PBA, with a specialty as a knockdown shooter who you can also rely on when it comes to defense, he was able to fit a role. He was drafted by an elite team, a championship contending team, who he's still with. I'm not sure if TNT drafted him or traded for him, but Pogoy has been with TNT for his career. Now, all of that to say that for Raylan Torres, that's kind of the peg that you want to be. I don't think Raylan is the shooter that Pogoy was, even in college, but I feel he's at least developing. He has some combos to his game, the pacing, getting the defenders on his hip, going for the step back, the sidestep triple, and we know he can be a pest on defense. I don't think he's a shutdown defender, but he is the kind of defender that can annoy you and can get physical with you, right? And he will give effort. People don't know this, but in game 3 of last year's UAP finals, Raylan Torres was cramping from neck down, body to the legs. He was cramping. He had dehydrated himself. He had emptied the tank literally. But without his play, I don't think UP ends up winning that contest because just from a positioning battle, you saw that he was giving Kevin Kembao a little bit of a struggle. Now back to the main point. You need those guys like Torres, kind of like what Baylor is doing, providing energy on defense and providing hustle plays here and there. Even what Gianni Stevens is doing with those easy 3 to 4 field goals in the paint. So I feel UP's best attack is still by committee. Now, they've always kind of been a by committee offense when you look at the last few seasons under Coach Gold because they've always been deep, they've always been loaded, they can have multiple guys to put points on the board. But when it comes to the final minutes of the game, they always had go-to guys, right? Those who they really trusted. Your JD Kagulangan, your Carl Tamayo, your Xavier Lucero to some degree, your QMB in the posts. I mean, QMB had some big post-ups in the finals last season. This season, it's not quite established yet. I feel that Remogat hitting those two big three-point shots with the way he was struggling was very important for his confidence moving forward. So let's see. That's why I'm very interested how this NU game plays out, Simon, on Sunday the 27th, because NU's not gonna go down without a fight. NU is a proud basketball team with a motivated head coach, and that's a squad that's felt like a lot of their key guys have left them, like Palanca, who's now with UP, Akowe, who's now with UST. So these guys are out to prove, like they have been the last few years, that they can contend against the best of the UAAP. Now, they took a gap year last year. because Diasano got injured a few minutes into his debut, which is still one of the saddest stories I've ever seen because he was playing really well in the offseason. But the years before that, NU has kind of always been in that tier of we're there, but we're not quite there. We seem like we're threats to compete for a championship, but we can't break through. We can't find a way to make the finals. And that's why I think they'll be motivated to win this game. So, two questions for you, Simon. One, how concerning is it that Remogat seems to have difficulty when it comes to facing double teams off pick and roll that force him back to the half court line? Is that something that you feel we should bookmark, or that's more of a he was facing Mike Phillips, and Mike Phillips is the only guy who can do that in the UAP, so it's not that big of an issue? That's the first question. And then the second question is, how significant for you personally is this upcoming UPNU game in terms of we can get takeaways moving forward about how good these teams are?
To be quite frank, I was surprised by how DLSU didn't really go back to that defensive scheme the second time they faced UP, because Remogat was hella frustrated in that first meeting that they had. Those swarming double teams, and basically it was really nothing that he'd ever faced before in his UAAP career. I do expect LaSalle, and because now the floodgates have opened, other teams to adopt a similar trapping or double teaming or blitzing scheme against Remogat moving forward. But I think Ray's enough of, I'll go ahead and call him a pro. I think Ray's enough of a pro, and the coaching staff are too much of, hella brainy people to not have prepared him for that situation last week, or of course moving forward. So I'm not really that concerned with Ray's ability to get out of a double team to make plays out of it. And shout out also to Harold. I'm beginning to sound like an Alarcon fanboy, but deal with it. Harold was actually showing Ray a blueprint for how to get out of double teams, because when LaSalle employed that tactic on Harold in the second half, particularly in the fourth quarter, Harold was not picking up his dribble navs. What he was doing was, I think he was trying to find either a sliver of space for him to safely move around, or he was trying to target between those two defenders, which one was quote unquote the slower moving, right? But whatever he was doing there, he was not picking the ball up, because that's exactly what LaSalle for decades upon decades has been trying to do with this trapping defense. Get you to pick up the ball and fluster you, and before you know it, you're turning the ball over. Now, as for this upcoming matchup on July 27 between UP and NU in the Phil Oil Finals, all right, personally, obviously, I want the Maroons to hoist up another trophy in the air, but I think we need to be. This is coming from a person who hates multitasking. I think we need to be versatile at this point, Nams. We need to both look at the short term, the glory that comes with winning a championship in any tournament, barangay man yan o international level, winning a championship will always be sweet. But I think you have to have one eye on that, and your other eye defying physics and moving towards looking at the future. No matter what happens in this matchup between UP and NU, they better burn through 3 or 4 notebooks. Do people still write in pen and paper notebooks? They better take so many notes, because this will be a test of not only how well they will match up against NU in this upcoming season, but also how they perform under duress, how they perform in crunch time, how they perform against certain matchups. NU has always given them matchup nightmares dating back to 2 seasons ago. So yeah, I think UP should be versatile enough to look at both the short-term gains and also the long-term gains next weekend.
I'm very excited for that matchup. It's not gonna draw the crowd that the UP LaSalle finals would have, but in terms of the basketball action, I think there's going to be a lot to take away from that game, particularly because when you look at NU's roster, they're veteran laden. They got a veteran FSA, they got veteran wings, they got a veteran point guard. They have role players. They have two incredible back to the basket college players, Palacielo and Padrones. And a lot of times, the veteran laden rosters take teams by surprise when we get to the UAP season. We also shouldn't forget that before Diasana's injury last year, NU was projected as a contender in the UAAP, right? No one took them seriously because, well, they took themselves seriously and a few people did because we just hadn't seen them win at the top level of the UAAP beforehand. But let's also not forget, NU was the only team to beat both LaSalle and UP, the finalists last UAP season, and they did that without an FSA. So that's a great team. That is a well coached team, like I said. Sunday's matchup is going to be quite exciting,
Didn't
shall we
Coach
say.
Jeff, didn't Coach Jeff tell the entire UAAP mamatay kayo sa inggit? Because you were the only, you were the only team to defeat both UP and LaSalle last season. Navs, let me just go on a 1 minute. Hey, people accuse me of just singing high praises for UP. I'm gonna do the same for NU right now. Omar John, my man, you have a second chance at life. Mo got got the nod over you last season, and now the way I saw him, Navs and Phil Oil, he was inspired. He was relishing every opportunity to be out there on the court once again with his teammates. Si Palacielo tsaka si Padrones, pag-aagawan yan pag sumali sa PBA draft yan. I'm telling you, pag-aagawan ng mga teams yan because they're bigs, they're physical, and they can shoot from outside, which is probably a precept of Coach Jeff Napa basketball. Kailangan yung mga malalaki natin may tira sa labas. And Jake Figueroa, to be quite honest, I'm not sure where you're still playing in this league, but in your fifth and final year, go, kumain ka na. Kainin mo lahat ng gusto mo kainin because Figueroa's one hell of a player, two-way guy, another uh, top prospect for the pros.
For sure. I was kind of disappointed with his performance last season. I wanted to see him take a leap. It seemed like he didn't do that. But that game against UST was very impressive in the Phil Oil semis. And if we can see more performances like that, maybe not exactly a 25 5 stat line, but at least like contribute here and there because I feel like he could be the best two-way wing player in college basketball given his combination of everything. Now we have another segment before we get to that though. We've now seen two LaSalle UP matchups this offseason. I didn't get to ask your thoughts after last weekend's game, but quickly, what are your key observations you're taking note moving forward for these two rivals? And yes, they are rivals. And who do you have higher than the other right now in terms of your rankings?
I'm Mr. Recency bias, apparently. So I'll go ahead and say 1A, 1B, and I'll flip a coin to see who's better because I honestly did not, to be perfectly honest, my basketball logical mind did not really give UP a chance if they were not able to solve what I've been harping on all along, and that is their rim protection issue. But last weekend, they showed us a blueprint for defeating LaSalle. Part of that was sort of self-inflicted because I think if Cortez had the ball more in the second half, I think LaSalle's playmaking would have been different. Abadiano and Torres did their part, but especially in the fourth quarter, listen, man, between Cool Cub and Kian, I'll give the ball to Cool Cub every damn time. So I'm not sure what happened there. So yeah, UP definitely still has their weaknesses to sort out. How many rebounds did they lose by, and how many free throws did they also miss? People have made a big deal about the free throw percentage of LaSalle in that game. Hey, UP was by no means a perfect team in that particular department as well. So I think the World University basketball series next month, Navs, we're excited for that. I think that's yet another round of let's try and see if this works. Let's just throw everything at the wall and see what sticks, and whatever sticks, we'll take it to our round one game this upcoming season. So yeah, these two teams are still trying to figure one another out. And I think it's pretty obvious. I'll close by saying this. I think it's pretty obvious that they are hiding a lot of stuff, or should I say, a lot of people.
So right now, I would say there are five realistic contenders in the UAAP this coming season. I feel like you know who I'm talking about here. So with all due respect, the UE Adamson FEU, who I think are going to be competitive teams. I don't think they're contenders per se. If you had to rank the five right now, how would you rank them? I'll go first. I think it's LaSalle 1, UP 2, NU 3, Ateneo 4, UST 5. How about you?
Uh, okay. Haters in the building. Um, NU5, Ateneo 4, UST3. Only because this particular UST group has had that Final Four experience, and obviously it was just one game. But we don't discount that. We don't discount the fact that uh, a lot of these core players have now had that taste of the bright lights, or should I say the brighter lights, more pressure than they had in the elimination rounds. So I think that playoff experience will go a long way. And again, I didn't think it was possible to say that any team coached by Tab Baldwin would be at a disadvantage when it comes to playoff experience. But it's a new day and age for the Blue Eagles, who I think would be on the rise, and it would be a mistake for anyone to underestimate them. And I've already said it. To be perfectly honest, I have no idea which between DLSU and UP is better right now.
By the way, there's an Asia Basket tournament starting on Sunday, July 20. So by the time you guys listen to this podcast, it would have started already. I'll be commentating some of those games. Shout out to the Asia Basket. And Colin Sakoe is expected to make his UST debut. So like I said in the last podcast too, we are not certain what to make of UST yet until we see Collins in uniform and playing, and we're about to find out.